The void between stars held secrets, and Talia Bennett made her living finding them. The salvage pilot guided her ship, the Star Weaver, through a field of debris that once belonged to a luxury cruise liner. Her scanners picked through twisted metal and frozen memories, searching for anything worth selling in the nearby outpost of New Singapore. "Come on, give me something good," she muttered, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display. The Starweaver's engines hummed quietly as she maneuvered between larger chunks of wreckage, her experienced hands steady on the controls. A sudden ping from her scanner broke the monotony. Talia leaned forward, her brow furrowing as she studied the readings. "That's weird." The energy signature didn't match any known cargo profiles in her database. It was subtle, almost alive, pulsing with a rhythm that reminded her of a heartbeat. The source came from a sealed compartment that had somehow survived the ship's destruction mostly intact. As Talia brought the Starweaver closer, she could see the compartment's reinforced walls gleaming dully in her ship's lights. This wasn't standard equipment for a cruise liner. She engaged the magnetic clamps and suited up for EVA. The recycled air in her helmet carried the familiar scent of ozone as she pushed off from her airlock, maneuvering with practiced ease through the debris field. Up close, the compartment looked even more suspicious. Its construction was military-grade, with security measures that would have cost more than most passengers could afford. It took Talia 20 minutes to bypass the locks. When the door finally slid open with a silent puff of escaping air, she found herself staring at a stasis pod unlike anything she'd seen before. Its surface was covered in flowing scripts that seemed to shift and change as she watched, and through its frosted viewing panel, she could make out a humanoid figure bathed in a soft, pearl-like glow. "Well, this just got interesting," she breathed, running her scanner over the pod. The readings made her pause. The pod's occupant was alive but definitely not human. The energy patterns coming from within matched no known species in her database. As Talia debated her next move, her emergency comm crackled to life. "Unregistered vessel, this is the corporate security vessel Arbitrator. You are in a restricted zone. Power down and prepare for boarding." Talia's heart raced. There was no such thing as a restricted zone in deep space unless someone powerful wanted it that way. She looked at the pod, then at her ship, calculating odds and risks in the space of a breath. "Sorry, Arbitrator," she muttered, already working to secure the pod to her cargo winch. "Found it first." The next few minutes were a blur of activity. As she guided the pod into her cargo hold, the Arbitrator fired warning shots that lit up the debris field like artificial stars. Talia sealed her airlock and rushed to the cockpit, her fingers dancing across the controls as she brought her engines to full power. The Starweaver wasn't built for combat, but Talia had made some modifications over the years. She activated her scatter field, a cloud of sensor-jamming particles that would give her a few precious moments of confusion. The ship lurched as she pushed it to maximum acceleration, diving through the debris field in a series of maneuvers that would have made flight school instructors faint. "Come on, baby," she urged her ship as warnings flashed across her screens. The Arbitrator was larger and better armed, but size came with limitations. Talia used every piece of debris as cover, weaving a path that forced her pursuer to choose between speed and safety. A blast from the Arbitrator's guns clipped her shield, making the whole ship shudder. Talia gritted her teeth and executed a risky move, cutting power to everything except life support for 3 seconds as she let momentum carry her behind a massive chunk of the cruise liner's hull. The Arbitrator's sensors swept past her position, searching for an active drive signature that wasn't there. When she brought her systems back online, she was already plotting a course to the nearest jump point. The Arbitrator was still searching in the wrong direction when she engaged her FTL drive, the stars stretching into lines around her. Only when she was safely in hyperspace did Talia allow herself to breathe normally again. She engaged the autopilot and made her way to the cargo hold, drawn by an inexplicable feeling that she couldn't ignore. The pod's surface had changed. The scripts were glowing now, pulsing with that same heartbeat rhythm she'd detected earlier. As she approached, the viewing panel cleared, revealing its occupant clearly for the first time. Talia caught her breath. Inside was a woman, or something close to it, with skin like opalescent silk that shifted through subtle colors with each breath. Her features were elegantly alien, with high cheekbones and slightly elongated eyes. What looked like crystalline markings traced patterns across her skin, catching the light in impossible ways. The pod systems were active now, beginning what looked like a revival sequence. Talia knew she should probably stop it, should wait until she reached somewhere safe, but something about the woman's face, peaceful yet somehow troubled even in stasis, made her hesitate. The pod's cover slid open with a soft hiss of escaping gases. The woman's eyes fluttered open, revealing irises that swirled with colors like the aurora borealis. She focused on Talia with an intensity that made the human skin tingle. "You're not them," the woman said in perfect English, her voice carrying musical undertones that seemed to resonate in Talia's chest. "You're not the ones who locked me away." "No," Talia replied, fighting the urge to step back. "I'm just a salvage pilot who found your pod. I'm Talia Bennett." The woman sat up with fluid grace, the crystalline patterns on her skin flickering with inner light. "I am Nyara," she said, then added with a bitter smile, "the cursed one, according to my people." Though the curse was not what they thought it was. Before Talia could respond, her ship's proximity alarm blared. New contacts had just dropped out of hyperspace, a lot of them. "They're coming," Nyara said, her expression darkening. "And they won't stop until they have what they want." Talia's hand moved to the pistol at her hip, even as she wondered what exactly she'd gotten herself into. "And what exactly do they want?" Nyara's eyes met hers, swirling with colors that spoke of power and secrets. "The future," she said simply. "One that neither my people nor yours are ready to accept." The Starweaver's engines strained as Talia pushed them well past their recommended limits. 6 pursuit vessels showed on her scanners, their energy signatures suggesting military-grade weapons. In the co-pilot's seat, Nyara sat with unnatural stillness, her iridescent skin pulsing with subtle waves of light that matched the ship's warning alerts. "Those aren't corporate security ships," Talia said, her hands dancing across the controls as she plotted multiple hyperspace trajectories. "The configuration is all wrong." "Sovereign Guard," Nyara replied, her melodic voice tight with tension. "Elite hunters from my homeworld. They're trained from birth to track and contain what they call anomalies." The crystalline patterns across her skin flickered darker, like storm clouds gathering. "They won't stop until I'm back in stasis." Talia glanced at her mysterious passenger. "And why exactly do they want you in stasis? What makes you an anomaly?" Instead of answering, Nyara reached out toward the ship's console. The crystalline patterns on her arm brightened, and suddenly the ship's power readings spiked. The engines surged with energy they shouldn't have had, propelling them faster than should have been possible. "That's why," Nyara said quietly as Talia stared at the impossible readings on her instruments. "I can interact with energy fields, strengthen them, redirect them, even create them. My people believe such abilities are unnatural, a corruption of our species' purity." A warning shot from the lead pursuit vessel lit up the space around them, too close for comfort. Talia swore under her breath and initiated another evasive pattern. "Look, I'm all for learning about your energy manipulation powers, but right now we need to focus on not dying. Any chance you can do something about those ships?" Nyara's expression tightened. "I can, but using my abilities at that scale, it leaves traces. More will come." "More are already coming," Talia pointed out as 2 new contacts appeared on her scanner. "At least if you do something, we might be alive to deal with them." For a moment, Nyara remained still, conflict clear in her aurora-like eyes. Then she stood, moving to the rear viewport with fluid grace. She pressed her palm against the transparent material, and the crystalline patterns on her skin began to pulse with increasing intensity. What happened next took Talia's breath away. Waves of energy rippled out from the Star Weaver, visible as distortions in space itself. When they reached the pursuit vessels, their engines suddenly flickered and died, leaving them drifting helplessly. "That should give us about 10 minutes, Nyara said, swaying slightly as she returned to her seat. The light show under her skin had dimmed considerably. Their backup systems will eventually compensate for the energy drain. Talia didn't waste the opportunity. She plugged in coordinates for a hyperspace jump that would take them to the outer rim, where the borders between various jurisdictions were fuzzy at best. As the stars stretched into lines around them, she allowed herself to relax slightly. "So," she said, engaging the autopilot, "want to tell me the whole story? Because I'm pretty sure I just burned every bridge I had with corporate security to save you, and I'd like to know why everyone's so interested in your particular talents." Nyara was quiet for a long moment, her eyes focused on the streaming lights of hyperspace. "My abilities aren't just about manipulating energy," she finally said. "I can sense it, understand it on a fundamental level. Including the energy that makes up life itself." She turned to face Talia, and there was both wonder and sadness in her expression. "Do you know what I sense when I look at humans?" Talia shook her head, suddenly very aware of how close they were sitting. "Potential," Nyara said softly. "Unlimited, raw potential. Your species is young, but your energy signatures, they're adaptable, capable of evolution in ways my people lost eons ago. Some of us theorized that humans might be the key to reversing our species' stagnation. Others saw it as proof that humanity needed to be controlled, or eliminated. Let me guess which side won that argument," Talia said dryly. "The Sovereign Council declared human celestial integration research forbidden," Nyara confirmed. "Those of us who could sense the potential were labeled as cursed, corrupted by proximity to human energy patterns. They said we'd lost our purity of essence." Her lips curved in a bitter smile. "In reality, they feared what would happen if humans learned to access even a fraction of their potential." A warning chime from the navigation system interrupted them. Talia checked the readings and frowned. "Someone's interfering with local hyperspace lanes. We'll have to drop out early." She glanced at her passenger. "Any chance you can do your energy trick again if we run into trouble?" "If necessary," Nyara said, though Talia noticed she looked paler than before. "But each time I use my abilities, I leave an energy signature they can track. It's how they found us so quickly before." Talia made a quick decision. "I know a place. It's not comfortable and it's definitely not legal, but it's shielded against every kind of scan known to humanity. We can lay low there, figure out our next move." "Our?" Nyara asked, those aurora eyes studying Talia intently. "Well, I'm already marked as your accomplice," Talia pointed out with a slight smile. "Besides, I've always wanted to unlock my unlimited human potential." That earned her a genuine laugh from Nyara, a sound like crystal wind chimes that seemed to resonate in Talia's chest. "Be careful what you wish for, Talia Bennett. Understanding one's true potential can change everything you think you know about reality." The Starweaver dropped out of hyperspace near a massive debris field, the remains of an ancient space battle, now serving as camouflage for those who preferred to avoid official notice. As Talia carefully navigated through the wreckage, she found herself sneaking glances at her companion. Nyara sat with her eyes closed, the crystalline patterns on her skin giving off a soft, peaceful glow. Despite the danger they were in, despite being hunted across the stars, she radiated a sense of certainty that Talia found both puzzling and attractive. "You're starting to show signs," Nyara said suddenly, not opening her eyes. "Signs of what?" "The resonance. Your energy patterns are already beginning to shift, adapting to prolonged exposure to mine." Now she did open her eyes, fixing Talia with a gaze that seemed to see straight through her. "Are you sure you want to continue down this path?" Once the change begins, it cannot be undone. Talia thought about her life before, endless salvage runs, staying one step ahead of corporate fees and regulations, always searching for that one big score that would give her freedom. Then she thought about the impossible things she'd seen in the last few hours, and the mystery still waiting to be uncovered. "I'm sure," she said firmly, guiding the ship toward a hidden docking port. "Whatever's coming, I want to see it through." The smile Nyara gave her was like watching stars being born. "Then let me show you what humanity could become." The hidden outpost known as Wrecker's Haven lived up to its name. Nested deep within the ancient debris field, it was a maze of interconnected salvage and abandoned ship parts, transformed into a rough settlement for those avoiding official attention. Talia guided the Starweaver through a particularly dense cluster of wreckage, approaching a concealed docking port that looked like just another piece of space junk. "Home sweet home," she muttered as they docked. "At least for now." Nyara stood at the viewport, her opalescent skin reflecting the dim emergency lighting. The crystalline patterns across her skin had settled into a steady, subtle pulse that Talia was beginning to recognize as her relaxed state. "There are many energy signatures here," she observed. "Layered, complex. Like a tapestry of secrets." "That's one way to put it," Talia said, powering down the ship's systems. "I call it the best place to disappear when the whole galaxy's looking for you." She paused, studying her companion. "Speaking of which, we should probably do something about your appearance. You kind of stand out." Nyara turned to her, Aurora eyes swirling with amusement. "Do I make you uncomfortable, Talia Bennett?" "No," Talia answered, perhaps too quickly. She was saved from elaborating by a sudden wave of dizziness that made her grab the nearest console for support. Nyara was at her side instantly, one hand on Talia's arm. Where their skin met, Talia felt a warm tingling sensation that spread up her arm. "The resonance is progressing faster than I expected," Nyara said softly. "Your energy patterns are remarkably adaptive. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" Talia asked, trying to focus as the room seemed to pulse with new layers of light she'd never noticed before. "It means you're more compatible with the integration process than most humans," Nyara explained. "But it also means we have less time than I thought. We need to find secure shelter before the changes become more pronounced." They made their way through the settlement's winding corridors, Talia leading them through shortcuts and hidden passages she'd learned over years of occasional visits. She'd arranged their arrival during the station's artificial night cycle, when most inhabitants would be sleeping or occupied with their own secretive business. The safe house Talia had in mind was actually a repurposed escape pod, modified into a small but secure living space. As they approached, however, Talia noticed something was wrong. The door was slightly ajar, and she could see a faint light from within. She drew her pistol, motioning for Nyara to stay back. But before she could approach, Nyara grabbed her arm. "Wait," she whispered. "I sense something familiar." The door opened fully, revealing a tall, distinguished-looking man with silver-streaked hair and a precisely trimmed beard. He wore the kind of expensive clothes that immediately seemed out of place in Wrecker's Haven. "Dr. Raven," Nyara said, her voice a mix of surprise and wariness. "My dear Nyara," the man replied with a slight bow. "And this must be the intrepid salvage pilot who freed you. Please, come inside. We have much to discuss, and very little time." Talia kept her pistol ready. "Friend of yours?" "He was one of the lead scientists on the integration project," Nyara explained. "Before the Sovereign Council shut it down." She studied the man carefully. "I thought you were dead." "Reports of my death were greatly exaggerated," Dr. Raven said with a thin smile. "Though they served their purpose. Please, both of you, come inside. Your pursuit ships have already entered this sector, and I'd rather not have this conversation in a corridor." Against her better judgment, Talia followed them into the safe house. Inside, she found her simple living space had been transformed into something resembling a research lab, with holographic displays showing complex energy patterns and biological readings. "How did you find us?" Talia asked, still not lowering her weapon. "I've been tracking the energy signatures of Nyara's abilities," Dr. Raven explained, moving to one of the displays. "As have others. The Sovereign Guard, certainly, but also some very interested parties within your own corporate security structure." He brought up a series of images, official-looking documents, security footage, and what appeared to be classified research data. "What you stumbled into, Ms. Bennett, is far more complex than a simple case of alien persecution. The Sovereign Council and certain human corporations have been working together for decades, studying the potential for human celestial energy integration. But you said such research was forbidden," Talia said to Nyara. "Publicly forbidden," Dr. Raven corrected. "Privately, they've been conducting experiments, trying to find ways to weaponize the process. To create soldiers capable of manipulating energy fields as Nyara can, but under their control." Nyara's skin darkened, the crystalline patterns flaring with angry light. "They're still doing it? Even after what happened at the Meridian facility?" "They never stopped," Dr. Raven said grimly. "But they hit a wall. None of their test subjects survived the forced integration process. They need you, Nyara. You're the only one who truly understands how the energy patterns must align for successful integration." Talia felt another wave of dizziness, stronger this time. The room seemed to shift around her, and she could suddenly see streams of energy flowing through the walls, through Dr. Raven, through Nyara, different patterns and intensities that made her head spin. "What's happening to me?" she gasped. "Your integration is accelerating," Nyara said, moving to support her. Where their skin touched, Talia could now see their energy patterns interweaving, creating new and beautiful configurations. "The resonance between us is stronger than any I've seen before." "She's a natural integrator," Dr. Raven said, scanning Talia with one of his devices. "1 in a billion, perhaps 1 in a trillion. If the Sovereign Guard realizes what she is, they'll stop trying to capture you and simply eliminate both of you instead." "Why?" Talia managed to ask, even as her perception of reality continued to shift and expand. "Because you represent what they fear most," Nyara said softly, her aurora eyes meeting Talia's. "Proof that humans and celestials can truly merge, creating something new, something beyond either of our species' current limitations. Something they can't control." Dr. Raven's instruments suddenly chimed in alarm. "We have company," he announced, checking the readings. "Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. They're initiating a full lockdown of the debris field." Talia tried to stand, fighting through the disorientation of her changing perceptions. "We need to get back to the Star Weaver." "No," Dr. Raven said sharply. "You're in no condition to fly, and they'll be expecting that. I have another way out, but first." He turned to Nyara. "You need to complete her integration. Now. It's her only chance of surviving what's coming." Nyara's expression was troubled. "Forcing the process could kill her." "Not completing it will definitely kill her," Dr. Raven countered. "The changes have gone too far to stop. You know this." Talia reached out, taking Nyara's hand. The energy patterns between them flared brilliantly. "Do it," she said firmly. "Whatever happens, I chose this path. I want to see it through." Nyara searched her face for a moment, then nodded. She placed her free hand on Talia's chest, directly over her heart. "Try to relax," she whispered. "And remember, whatever you see, whatever you feel, I'm right here with you." The crystalline patterns on Nyara's skin began to glow with increasing intensity. Talia felt warmth spreading from where their hands touched, then a sensation like electricity running through her entire body. Her vision exploded with colors she had no names for, and she could feel her consciousness expanding, reaching out to touch the very fabric of spacetime itself. The universe, she realized with stunning clarity, was so much more than she had ever imagined. And she was about to become something entirely new within it. Talia's world had become an ocean of light and energy. Every atom around her sang with its own unique frequency, creating a symphony of existence she'd never known was there. Through it all, she felt Nyara's presence like an anchor, guiding her through the overwhelming flood of new sensations. "Focus on my voice," Nyara whispered, her hand still pressed against Talia's skin. "Find the pattern of my energy and use it as a reference point." Talia concentrated, and slowly the chaos began to organize itself. She could see now how different energy signatures related to each other, how they flowed and interacted. Her own pattern had changed dramatically, taking on crystalline aspects similar to Nyara's while maintaining its uniquely human characteristics. "Remarkable," Dr. Raven murmured, studying his readings. "The integration is nearly perfect. I've never seen anything like." He was cut off by the sound of explosions somewhere above them. The entire station shuddered, and Talia could see ripples of disruption moving through the energy fields around them. "They're breaching the outer defenses," Dr. Raven said, quickly gathering his equipment. "We need to move. Now." Talia stood, surprised to find that her earlier dizziness had been replaced by a strange sense of clarity. She could feel the presence of their pursuers, their energy signatures burning with focused intensity. "There are 3 teams," she said, then blinked in surprise at her own certainty. "They're trying to surround us." "Your perceptive abilities are developing faster than expected," Nyara said, a note of pride in her musical voice. "Can you sense the path I'm thinking of?" Talia concentrated and found she could indeed perceive a thread of Nyara's thoughts, represented as intricate patterns of energy. "The maintenance tunnels. But they're flooded with radiation from damaged reactor cores. Which makes them perfect for us," Dr. Raven said, activating what looked like an old service door. "The radiation will help mask your energy signatures, and thanks to your integration, you're now largely immune to its effects." They hurried into the tunnels, which were lit only by the eerie glow of exposed reactor elements. Talia found she didn't need the light, she could see everything clearly through its energy patterns, from the flowing coolant in the walls to the small life forms that had adapted to the radioactive environment. "There's something you're not telling us," Talia said to Dr. Raven as they moved through the maze-like passages. "You were too well prepared for this. You knew we were coming." The scientist's energy pattern flickered with what Talia was learning to recognize as discomfort. "I knew someone would eventually free Nyara," he admitted. "I've been monitoring the stasis pod's transport for months. But I didn't expect." He glanced at Talia. "You're changing everything. The natural integration you've achieved, it proves my theories were right all along." "What theories?" Nyara asked sharply. Before he could answer, Talia felt a surge of hostile energy signatures ahead. "Stop," she called out, instinctively throwing up her hand. To her amazement, the energy fields around them responded, creating a shimmering barrier just as weapons fire erupted from a side passage. "Well done," Nyara said, moving to stand beside her. Together, they strengthened the barrier, their combined abilities creating patterns of protection that deflected the incoming fire. "This way." Dr. Raven called out, indicating another tunnel. As they ran, he continued speaking, his words coming faster now. "The Sovereign Council was wrong about humanity being a threat. You're not a danger to our species' purity, you're the key to our evolution. Both species were meant to merge, to become something greater than either could be alone." More explosions rocked the station, and Talia could feel the energy fields becoming increasingly unstable. "The reactor containment is failing," she reported, the knowledge coming to her instinctively. "If it goes, it'll take out half the debris field." "Perfect," Dr. Raven said with sudden intensity. "That's exactly what we need." Nyara's energy pattern flared with alarm. "What are you talking about?" They emerged into what appeared to be an old research lab, filled with equipment that looked both familiar and alien. Dr. Raven quickly began activating various systems, his movements precise and practiced. "I've spent years preparing for this moment," he said, his eyes bright with fervor. "The successful integration of human and celestial energy patterns. Do you understand what this means? With the right broadcast array, we could trigger mass integration across entire populations. Force the evolution that both our species leaders have tried to prevent." Talia felt sick as she realized what he was suggesting. "You want to use the reactor explosion to power a forced integration wave. You're trying to mutate everyone in the sector." "I'm trying to save both our species," Dr. Raven shouted. "The Sovereign Council, your corporate security, they're all trying to maintain an artificial separation that was never meant to exist. With your combined energy signatures as a template, I can show everyone the truth. By killing millions who aren't compatible with the integration process," Nyara said, her voice hard. "Just like the failed experiments at the Meridian facility. That's why you helped shut down the official research, isn't it? So you could pursue your own vision without oversight." The scientist's energy pattern had become chaotic, shot through with dark currents that made Talia's new senses recoil. "Sometimes evolution requires sacrifice," he said, reaching for a control panel. Talia moved without thinking, her abilities responding to her intent. Energy fields twisted around Dr. Raven, holding him in place. But she could feel him fighting back. He had some kind of integration of his own, crude but powerful. "You don't understand what you're interfering with," he snarled, his form beginning to glow with accumulated energy. "I won't let you stop humanity's ascension." "Talia!" Nyara called out. The reactor. She could feel it too, the containment fields were about to fail completely. In moments, the chain reaction would begin. They were out of time. Talia looked at Nyara, and in that moment, their energy patterns synchronized perfectly. She knew exactly what they needed to do, even though it seemed impossible. "Together?" she asked. Nyara's aurora eyes met hers, filled with trust and something deeper. Together. They joined hands, their combined abilities reaching out to grasp the chaotic energy of the failing reactor. At the same time, they contained Dr. Raven's desperate attempt to trigger his integration wave, trapping the competing energy patterns in a complex web of force. "What you're trying to do isn't evolution," Talia said, understanding flowing through her new senses. "Real change can't be forced. It has to be chosen, accepted, grown into." "Just like this," Nyara added softly, squeezing Talia's hand as their power continued to build. Together, they began to redirect the accumulated energy, weaving it into new patterns that would contain rather than destroy. It was like trying to reshape a star with their bare hands, but through their connection, they found strength neither possessed alone. The universe held its breath, balanced on the edge of catastrophe. And in that moment, human and celestial stood together, proving that the greatest power comes not from force, but from choice, trust, and understanding. The universe within Wrecker's Haven hung suspended between destruction and salvation. Talia and Nyara stood at its center, their combined abilities holding back both the failing reactor's chaos and Dr. Raven's desperate attempt to force evolution upon an unsuspecting population. Through their joined hands flowed power beyond anything either had imagined possible. "You can't contain it forever," Dr. Raven snarled, still struggling against their energy barrier. "The reaction has already begun." He was right. Talia could feel the reactor's energy building, threatening to overwhelm even their combined abilities. But through her new senses, she perceived something else, patterns within patterns, possibilities hidden in the very fabric of space-time. "Nyara," she said softly, "I think I see another way." Their energy patterns synchronized even more deeply as Talia shared her understanding. Instead of just containing the reactor's power, they could reshape it, transform it into something entirely new. It would take everything they had, and the slightest mistake would be catastrophic, but it was possible. The quantum fold, Nyara breathed, Aurora eyes wide with recognition. Like the ancient stories of how my people first learned to manipulate energy fields. Exactly, Talia said. We don't stop the reaction, we transcend it. Dr. Raven's energy pattern fluctuated with sudden fear. No. You'll destroy decades of work. The evolution must be controlled, directed. That's where you went wrong, Talia told him, even as she and Nyara began the delicate process of reshaping reality around them. True evolution isn't about control. It's about growth, about becoming what you're meant to be, not what others try to force you to be. The air itself seemed to crystallize as their combined abilities reached out, not just touching the energy fields but fundamentally altering how they interacted with spacetime. The failing reactor's power was drawn into their working, its chaotic potential transformed into structured possibility. Through their deep connection, Talia felt Nyara's memories of her people's past, how they had once been explorers and innovators before fear led them to reject change and enforce stagnation. She shared her own experiences of humanity's endless drive to push boundaries, even when those boundaries existed for good reasons. Together, Nyara said, her voice resonating with power, we can show them another path. The quantum fold began to take shape around them, reality bending like light through a prism. Dr. Raven's equipment sparked and failed as energy patterns shifted beyond anything his instruments could measure. His own crude integration abilities flickered as the artificial processes he'd used to obtain them broke down. Please, he begged, his fervor replaced by desperation, you don't understand what's at stake. The Sovereign Council, the corporations, they'll never allow this knowledge to spread. They'll hunt you forever. Let them try, Talia said, feeling strength flow through her transformed being. We'll face whatever comes together. The quantum fold reached its critical point. In that moment of perfect synchronization, Talia and Nyara's combined consciousness expanded to encompass the entire station. They could feel every life form aboard, from the Sovereign Guard teams closing in to the smallest microorganisms thriving in the radioactive tunnels. Each one represented a unique pattern of energy, a testament to the infinite possibilities of existence. With precise control born of their perfect union, they began to release the transformed energy. Instead of destruction, it spread through the station as pure potential, touching every being aboard. Not forcing change, but offering opportunity, the chance to see beyond artificial limitations and recognize the underlying connections that bound all life together. The Sovereign Guard teams stopped their advance, overwhelmed by sudden awareness of the very energy fields they had been trained to fear and control. Throughout the station, humans and aliens alike experienced a moment of profound clarity, glimpsing the true nature of reality that Talia and Nyara now perceived constantly. Dr. Raven fell to his knees, his corrupted integration patterns unraveling as the quantum fold's energy washed through him. I see, he whispered, tears streaming down his face. I see how wrong I was. The reactor's power was fully contained now, transformed into a stable matrix that would continue to offer enlightenment to those ready to receive it. As Talia and Nyara gradually released their hold on the quantum fold, reality settled into new patterns, not forced into change, but gently encouraged to grow. Through the station's viewports, the debris field seemed different now. What had once been just wreckage now pulsed with potential, each piece containing echoes of its past and seeds of possible futures. Like their own transformed beings, it was both what it had always been and something entirely new. They're coming, Nyara said, sensing the arrival of more ships, not just Sovereign Guard vessels, but corporate security cruisers as well. They'll want to contain this, to study and control what we've created here. Talia smiled, feeling the Starweaver's energy patterns calling to her. The ship had been transformed as well, its systems now resonating with their combined abilities. Then we'll just have to stay one step ahead of them. Show others what's possible when fear doesn't hold us back. A noble goal, came a new voice. They turned to see an old woman standing in the doorway, her energy patterns unlike anything either of them had encountered before. And one I think we can help you with. You're like us, Nyara said with surprise. But your patterns, they're different than any I've seen. The woman smiled. There are more of us than either the Sovereign Council or the corporations know. Those who found their own paths to integration, who've been waiting for the right moment to show others what's possible. A resistance? Talia asked. A community, the woman corrected. One that could use people like you, proof that our species can grow together, become more than the sum of our parts. Talia looked at Nyara, their energy patterns harmonizing with shared purpose. In that moment, both knew they had found not just each other, but their true calling. They would become guides for others like them, helping both humans and celestials understand that the greatest evolution comes not from force or fear, but from choice and connection. Well, Talia said, taking Nyara's hand as their transformed ship came to life around them, I always did want to see what was possible out there among the stars. Nyara's aurora eyes sparkled with joy and determination. Then let's find out together. As they prepared to depart, Talia felt the quantum fold's energy rippling outward through space, touching other worlds, other beings. The change they had started here would spread, not as a forced evolution, but as an offering of possibility to all who were ready to see beyond the artificial boundaries that had separated them for so long. The stars beckoned, filled with new patterns waiting to be discovered. And this time, they would face them not as human and celestial, not as separate species bound by fear and prejudice, but as pioneers of a new way of being, one that celebrated the infinite potential that exists when barriers fall and understanding blooms.